Hello everybody, this is me, Corelli, and welcome to my channel. And this is episode 348 of my Cat Vibes series. Today we're painting a piece called In the Silence of the Moment. This is from my September, 24 September series of paintings. Yet another panel. But before we go into the video, of course, I want to urge you to subscribe to my channel and enable all notifications. This is important because YouTube by default is not going to show you my content. This is just how they operate. So you kind of got to tap that bell notification, and that way you're going to be notified once I drop a video. And I'm dropping videos all the time. If you're watching on Telegram or on Instagram, subscribe, follow. So, onto the painting. This time, this one is roughly 12 by 16, this panel. And I find it both challenging and entertaining to go for these... What word to use in English? I don't even know. What do you call it in English when you have this combobulation of branches and twigs and tree limbs, and it's not one tree, but it's like a multitude of them, and they're all together, and there is lots of vegetation, and it's all just doesn't even have a consistent pattern. It's like when you paint one single tree, at least you're looking at one thing. And sure, it can kind of vary, and it can be bent backwards or sideways or whatever, but at least there is, well, there's a trunk, there are limbs, and there is some sort of structure. But it's kind of more complex, and it's more complicated when you're looking at a multitude of trees and bushes and undergrowth and trees in the distance, and they all comprise some sort of image, which apparently caught my eye. I'm painting from a photo that I've taken in the back of this property, and I've seen something in this, specifically in this frame that I picked to paint. But it's different because the patterns in this image are different. And it's just a little bit more complex, let's say. But I find it both challenging and entertaining to go for something like this because I still have to separate the trunks and the tree limbs that are from the more distant trees, like those on top over there. Those are other trees. They're the woods that kind of begin to the right there. So those are the first trees from those woods. Now, in the bottom left, over here, this little opening, in fact, there is a fence, and across that fence, there is a neighbor's property. So there's like a field where they keep horses. So there's a fence, and this combobulation of trees, this beautiful mess, is kind of leaning over that fence onto the neighbor's property. And there's another tree that grows by the fence, so it hangs, you see these bright orange, red, greenish mass that comes from the upper left corner into the center of the composition. This is from another tree, yet another tree, which kind of hangs over the fence. And then there are smaller trees closer to the foreground. And then there are some leaves, some dead leaves in the foreground here at the bottom. So there's a lot of this. And then there are trees that are deeper. There is another tree behind there, which is kind of half dead. So it has these dead limbs on it and dead branches. It's a pine tree, I guess, a pine tree that didn't make it. Ever since we had that ice storm back in the year 2021, I believe, like 3 years ago. So there was a lot of dead wood in these woods, and some of these dead trees are still standing there. Some of them have fallen, but some of them are still standing there, and it's kind of behind, it's a little bit deeper over there, behind these more colorful splashes of orange and green and these kind of colors. So it's kind of buried there in the distance, underneath and behind these trees that are in the foreground. I think stuff like this allows me, on one hand, to paint more loosely, because it's just a... I'm just having a field day experimenting here. On the other hand, it's very challenging, because it constantly urges me to focus and zero in on the small little details of every little leaf, every little trunk and tree limb and all this. And yet I'm deliberately pulling myself away from that and forcing myself to generalize. So this I find in itself to be a fascinating process. Not allowing myself to get too drawn into the details, but retaining the bigger picture, retaining the bigger mass of what's going on here, retaining the bigger overarching flow of colors, of texture, of motion, because I see motion here, aside of all the other things, and something else, and something else. I can't exactly explain everything that I'm doing here. I'm transforming what I see into something, and I myself don't even quite know what is this, because it's not realism, really. It's not an attempt to recreate whatever I see in the photo. It's me transforming an actual scene into something different, something that is kind of realistic, but I guess it's kind of post-impressionism, and it's, I don't know, whatever it is. Expressionism, most definitely, because I think I'm superimposing my own personality onto my subject matter. So it's definitely an interpretation. It's rather an interpretation, and quite a loose one. And that's how it turns out. That's what we got here. I thoroughly enjoy this process. Now, this piece will be framed just like every other one of these panels. They will be framed, and I would assume that they're going to be pretty easy to frame. I think I was building frames for the past week or two. I think I've developed a method. So it's going to be fairly easy, and rather sooner than later, this piece will appear in my Etsy store. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Ciao.